I was watching, and the next thing you see is that they're getting called for spirit of the game. I think it's rubbish. I think the apology isn't genuine. I think he's still rattled. I think he's still annoyed. But at the end of the day, like you said, an 81-year-old bloke shoving a 9-year-old kid. If that was my kid that was shoved, I'd probably punch on with the master. I mean, that's just how it is.
Anytime dogs are winning, parrots losing, it's a good week.
It's a good month of football, I tell you that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming you to another episode of League Chat with the Stat. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. Before we kind of continue here, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment, leave your thoughts on this episode, and make sure to subscribe to Have a Chat Productions. Guys, it's been a crazy week of rugby league and a crazy month in general, but before we even get into all that, I've got to introduce my man Ray. How are you, sir?
Mate, I'm good. How you doing?
Yeah, mate, I'm good. A lot to talk about, a lot to get through, but I feel like before we get through everything, we just got to talk about one little thing in particular, just so we can highlight it and celebrate it, for a little bit before we kind of kick off the episode. But we're undefeated. You know what I mean? Like, it's not great. I know we haven't been playing amazing footy, but we're the only undefeated team with a comp alongside Melbourne. I think we have to celebrate that a little bit.
Bro, we're currently coming second.
Yeah.
And that's big stuff for the Dogs. It's been sloppy. It's been disgusting.
Yeah.
Hey, three wins.
3 from 3. Look, we'll take it. Like, we can sit here and complain, it should be better, and it can be better. And while it can be, when was the last time we've been sitting near the top of the ladder?
Hey, when's the last time we've been sitting at the top of the ladder? And when is the last time Parramatta have been losing by 3? You know what I'm saying?
Like 3 games. You know what? Look, I know that you love it, but there's actually a crazy stat on this.
Tell me.
The last time that the Dogs were second on the ladder, and I think it was when they started the year 3-0, and which was the same year that Parramatta started 0-3 the season. We actually made the grand final that year, and that was 2012.
Dead set.
Yeah. So, a little bit of stats for you, just to kind of reel it in to start it off.
I'm loving that, bro. Anytime Dogs are winning, Parrots losing, it's a good week.
It's a good month of football, I tell you that. Look, Parramatta have their struggles. We'll get into that a little bit after. But, look, I think there's so much to talk about, Ray, but I want you to kick it off for me and tell me what we can talk about tonight.
Bro, it's been a big month of news. A lot of news stories pumping out. I think the biggest one that's caught everyone by surprise is DCE is leaving Manly.
Yeah.
This is his last year at Manly. The 36-year-old has decided to rock the NRL world. It happened on Monday night when that 36-year-old confirmed his tenure at the club would finally be coming to an end.
Yeah.
After reports of Cherry Evans' decisions first emerged, news dramatically broke during Fox League's 360, and Manly made an offer. They made him an offer to stay, but less than 2 hours later, Cherry Evans rejected that deal, which was reported to be worth $1.5 million over 2 years to keep him at the club. No one knows whether or not he's going to be going to a different club, if he's retiring. Stat, what are your thoughts on this? What's happening with DCE?
All right. So there's a lot to unpack from this. So how I've kind of taken a few days to kind of look into everything and kind of understand all different avenues and why and where. See, it broke 6 o'clock Monday night. And there was this talk that Manly aren't going to re-sign DCE. DCE has decided that he will move on. And then 45 minutes in, onto 360, they retell the news of that happening. And then within that ad break, they come back and then they announce that Sea Eagles put in a 2-year offer. They call up Buzz and get a 2-year offer from the CEO. Now, it's crazy. Now, the thing is, I had a gut feeling Cherry Evans wasn't happy in February.
Why?
Well, he came out in an interview, I think it was just talking about how the season and everything else. He came in discussing in an interview that he had actually spoken to rival clubs before the start of the 2025 season to see and get any gauge of an interest of whether they'd consider taking him on for 2 years or for another playing deal. Now, the thing about Cherry Evans, everyone's quick to criticize him, but he's only missed about 23 games in his whole career.
Wow.
So when you think about that, you think of the durability, his experience, just how good he is playing still. It's crazy that Manly wouldn't even think to go out of their way and keep him for as long as they would have.
Bro, that's the part that surprises me. He's the face of their club, and he's been the face of their club for how many years? How many years has he been with them?
Well, he re-signed a 10-year deal back in 2014, 2015, I believe. He was also in the 2011 grand final.
Yeah.
So he's been there for 15 years.
Bro, he's part of the furniture there. So the fact that they wouldn't do something to keep him around and make him happy, honestly shocks me. It
Yeah.
shocks me that this news has come out. Do you think this is all money based, or is there something else here?
It's a bit of both. Look, from what I understand of Cherry Evans, he's done really well with his money. He isn't someone that seems to have thrown his money in the deep end. But there's a lot of things at play here. Firstly, the desire that Manly want to keep him is not as strong as his desire of wanting to stay with the club. Now, I know that Cherry Evans wants to win a comp, and whether Manly have the team to do it this year or not is a different story, but he does want to have one more crack at finishing his career with a competition win. Now, I think there's money involved. I think it's player management involved. See, how it used to be was there was a guy who's well known, Joe Eby. He used to work very closely with Isaac Moses. They had a massive falling out. Them two together managed a lot of players like Cherry Evans, Tedesco, Robson. Back in the day, Isaac Moses managed players like Michael Jennings, Cameron Smith. But they had a massive falling out, went into the courts, and he got really ugly from there. And James Tedesco and Daly Cherry Evans made the move over to side with Joe Eby. So what's happening now is there could be a lot of rift in the sense that Isaac Moses, who is managing, coaches like Anthony Seibold, and he's involved with a lot of high-profile players in the NRL. The one thing that gets me is to see the battle between how the negotiations are going to take place with Joe Eby and those that are involved with Isaac Moses. So I think there could be some stuff breaking out of that, in that regard pretty soon. So I think there's money involved. I think there's him wanting to win another premiership involved. I think there's player management involved. But I think there's a lot of turmoil between him and the Sea Eagles. I mean, for the news to break out at 6 p.m, for it to get them broken out again onto NRL 360, for the CEO in the ad break to then come say, oh, no, we've got a 2-year offer plus a coaching gig for Cherry Evans. Or for Cherry Evans to then come out 100% footy, which he was scheduled to do anyway. So he was already scheduled to come out and be on 100% footy, regardless if there was contract noise or not. For him to then tell his side of the story as to what's happening. And look, he's doing the gentleman thing here. He's denying there's no animosity. He's denying there's no rift. He's denying there's no issues between him and Seibold, him and Gentle.
There definitely is, right?
Bro, of course there is. He's just doing... he's trying to be as professional as he can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for it to then come out 2 hours later, the fact that the management didn't call him and say, hey, look, we've actually got a 2-year offer. For him to say, look, we're not going to offer you another deal until another club offers you a deal is a massive low blow. I think for him to come out and deny it on air there and then, to say respectfully, no, on 100% footy, I'm going to decline that offer.
Deal's done.
He's gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
There's no matter of him staying. It'll take a lot of mending and a lot of bridges to be mended for him to actually stay. I know in wrestling that you kind of say never say never, but rugby league, once it's kind of definitive, it's pretty much definitive. I don't see him staying. There's a lot of clubs that'll be after him. There's a lot of clubs that would need a Cherry Evans. Now, he's, like you said, he's made it clear that he hasn't decided whether he's going to play on or not. Now, I think he should play on. I think he's worth still $800,000 a season. Now, it's just a matter of finding out which clubs will go after him.
Now, as Manly, let me ask you, they offered him $750 per year for 2 years. Do you not think it's within... I think he's worth $1 million, man.
Okay.
At Manly, the length of time he's been there, as a gesture of goodwill for being such a great halfback for all those years, don't you think they offer him that big money offer like Knights did Dylan Brown, which we'll get into a little bit later?
Look, you'd think that would be the case. Now, if Cherry Evans' form had dipped, because look, if you think about it, how many players who are 34, 35 are currently playing in the NRL? And how many of those that are playing are actually decent?
The guy's 36 years old, and his form is still there. He's still a rep player. It's still unbelievable. Yeah.
So it actually bewilders me that they wouldn't go and look to keep him for the money that he wants. I can see them not giving him $1 million, but 900 would even be acceptable. Like I said, I still think he's worth about 8. To be honest, I think that's fair. I think what I'm trying to look at as well is how they balance the salary cap.
Yeah.
Because they've got Jake Trbojevic and Tom Trbojevic coming up off contract soon. So for me, it's kind of how they balance the books and try to keep everyone else that's kind of been in their team. I think he's worth a lot. I think he's worth to Manly. Manly should have come to the table and be like, you know what? You are DCE. You should play. You should have at least a 1-year deal guaranteed every year until you want to retire, like they did Cameron Smith.
Yes, sir.
Because Cameron Smith had that deal.
Yes.
I think it's really poor form of Manly's end. Look, I think at the end of the day, Manly have dropped the ball. They should have offered him at least $1 million a year to stay, to keep him happy, go as long as you need. And where Manly have dropped the ball here in a lot of areas is the fact that they've also let some of their kids go. So Jamie Humphrey signed a 2-year deal with the Rabbitohs. He's now their starting halfback playing very good football, keeping a $700K recruit in the New South Wales Cup. They've got, in their juniors, they've got Brendan Wakeham, who isn't their long-term solution. And they've got Brad Arthur's son, Jake Arthur, who isn't doing much, hasn't really been convincing. They've actually used him all of the ball playing lock. So he's a bit whatever. But now there's only been recent talk that Jamal Fogarty is one that they're interested in to bring in to sign. Jamal Fogarty is 31, 32. He's not Cherry Evans, who's 36.
Yeah.
And I know that it's just a stop-fill gap for a year or two. There's also talk that if they don't get Fogarty, they want to move Tom Trbojevic into the halves. So you can see that Manly haven't really advocated for this well. You can see they haven't really planned for this properly. Now, I think Cherry Evans will 100% go. To me, it's a matter of which club he goes to.
Do you have any idea where he's going? Anywhere you'd like to see him go then?
Look, the hot talk is the Chooks.
Interesting.
Because Joe Weeby, like I said, he manages DCE. And it's well known. He manages DCE, he manages Tedesco, who also manages Reece Robson, who signed the full deal with the Roosters coming next year. Mm-hmm. So for him to go in to 7 with a spine of Reece Robson, who's currently in Origin, Tedesco, who's world class, and they can educate someone like Sandon Smith, who's currently there at 6. I think it's a really good deal. That's the one I think where he would go. But I'm also of the belief, I've got different opinions. Like, to make it easy, he'll go get looked after by Nick Politis and Trey Robertson at the Chooks. I know that he looks after his father here in Sydney. And I know that he's there all the time looking after him. So I can't see him leaving Sydney. If he was to leave Sydney, he'd go back to the Dolphins where it all started. They came out recently and said that they're unsure whether they would actually offer him a deal. It's a matter of whether DCE was interested in going to Redcliffe, that they'd have a conversation. But look, you think of how many clubs could use a half, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Dolphins could use that experience. Roosters could use that experience. So they'll lose Townsend at the end of the year. A club like Parramatta, obviously losing Dylan Brown. I know they've got Moses at 7, but I'm sure they can just switch the numbers around.
Listen, there's plenty of clubs that could use him. There's plenty of clubs that could use a experience like him. I mean, at 36 years old, he's not losing any form. He'll be a great player no matter where he goes. I guess it just matters. I guess the subject is who picks him up. Now, talking about someone being picked up, Dylan Brown. He has been picked up by the Newcastle Knights, and they have offered him a whopping $13 million deal. Dylan Brown has confirmed that he's set to sign the richest deal in NRL history with a $13 million 10-year deal to leave Parramatta. The Eels playmaker will join the Newcastle Knights until the end of 2035, as it was first reported by News Corp. Now, it has come out recently that after he signed, there was a clause in the contract that after 8 years, there is a pull-out scheme. Bro, what do you think of 24-year-old Dylan Brown signing $13 million with the Newcastle Knights?
Money talks, huh?
Big time.
Now, I know that, look, I think for Newcastle, it's a decent signing. To get someone like Dylan Brown, who's a really good 6, I think he's a really good player. To get him into their side, that'll actually help him a lot, I think would be a great deal. The problem that I have with it all is that Newcastle don't know how to spend their cap properly. Now, we know that the deal was done. We know that he's actually signed the deal. And he's looking to move forward there next year. He's confirmed that. It's been reported by Parramatta as well as Newcastle. And the press release has been released on that. So, while I do know that he's signed and everything else, whether it's a good fit for the club, I mean, it could be. In the sense of where they could probably attract more players to come to the club to play with Ponga and Brown. 13 million is the big question mark. Now, the problem I have with that money, hey?
Is he worth that? $13 million,
No.
mate. That's ridiculous.
So he'd be the highest paid player. So
that's unbelievable.
Yeah, so because how I look at it is if you're giving someone like Dylan Brown 1.3 mil, then I'd look at what's his name? Nathan Cleary?
Yeah.
He's easily worth 2 million.
100%.
If you're going off those things of what he's done in the game. Dylan Brown hasn't done much in the game aside from play international and play at Para. Look, I know that Newcastle are trying to rebuild. I know they've got a lot of money in the cap to rebuild. But 13 million, like I know you got to pay overs for players, but I feel like that's way too over for Dylan Brown. And I feel like at a time where Dylan Brown should really be showcasing his ability, now for para, he's not doing that. So it leaves me the question mark of, will he go and make a difference at 7 in Parramatta? Now, there have been many legends across the game who have kind of said that, you know, he's a good player, he's a great 6, he's one of the best 6s in the game. As a 7, he's not a 7. So, did Newcastle really spend 13 million on a 6? Because they've struggled since Andrew Johns to find the proper 7. They've got like 5, 6, 7 halves at the moment at their club. They've got Jackson Hastings, who's on the outer, who is now become a ball playing lock in New South Wales Cup on $850 a year. They've got Will Price from the Super League, who's a 6, who now they're shopping around. They've got Jack Cogger, who was signed from Penrith 2 years ago. Since he won the comp with them, has done absolutely nothing. They've put Fletcher Sharp from the wing to the halves. So far, he's looked okay. Not amazing, but he's looked okay. I mean, Dylan Brown coming in still doesn't solve their 7 issue. I don't think he's worth the money. I think it's a good signing for Newcastle, but I don't think at that money he's worth that much. And there was even talk that they were going to make Fletcher Sharp a halfback and keep Dylan Brown at 5'8". So already the signing seems a bit stupid.
Yeah.
But look, money talks. At the end of the day, we can sit here and absolutely slam him for going, but NRL, you only get a short window to make the most of your opportunities. And the fact that he'll get 13 million over 10 years, after 8 years he gets to negotiate, that's guaranteed 1.3 million a year for 8 years. I don't think he's dumb. I think he'll obviously use that money wisely, and to get paid that much, he can look after his family back home in New Zealand. For him, I'm happy for him. I'm actually genuinely happy for him.
Listen, on the Dylan Brown scenario, mate, he's done the right thing. Mate, 1.3 per year, at least 8 years, for sure, go for it.
Yeah.
He's done the right thing as a player, as a family man, everything. I think what this shows is there is a massive problem at Newcastle.
Yep.
Ever since the days of Andrew Johns, they have been struggling to find a winning culture there. And it looks like they're trying to throw money at anything and anyone to try and fix that problem.
Yep.
But I think their big problem isn't in getting one great player here, one great player there, and throwing money all over the joint. I think it's a culture issue.
Yeah.
I think if they don't fix that culture issue, the Newcastle Knights are never going to see final season.
Yeah, so I think the last time they would have had bit of success was the times where Wayne Bennett was coaching them.
Yep.
Since then, it's all gone to rubbish. So, does Dylan Brown go and answer their problems? No. But it could be the start of things to come in attracting decent players to Newcastle so that they don't have to pay extreme overs and then hopefully get them into finals contention at that point. I don't think anyone's disputing the fact that Dylan Brown signed with Knights. Everyone's just disputing the money. But I like it. I mean, like I said, it's good for Dylan Brown. And he came out saying he didn't want to leave Parramatta, but, you know, they wouldn't come to terms with what he was looking for. But, I mean, when you get the financial security like that, how can you really turn it down?
100%. But, Stat, let me ask you, where does a deal like this come from? How does this happen? How does a club have the audacity to pull out big money like that? Granted, they got it in the salary cap, but where do they come up with a figure like that? Because this is game-changing stuff. This is going to change the NRL forever.
Yeah. How they come up with those figures, I couldn't tell you. I don't think it's wise. I know that Melbourne have a massive system that they've got in when it comes to offering players deals that are coming from other clubs, even re-signing. They put a bunch of their stats in this sort of, from my understanding, it's like this sort of machine that kind of spits out what a player is worth.
Calculator.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. It's like a calculator, financial calculator of what they're worth based on their experience, what they've achieved in the game, what value they can bring, and everything else. Storm have it all figured out. Now, Newcastle have gone to great lengths, and I think they've done this on the basis of desperation. They're desperate to get a big name. Aside from money, what's attractive about Newcastle? The place is a dump.
You're telling me, mate.
Yeah, well, you would know. If anyone knows, you would know. You lived there for a couple of years. The place is a dump. So to attract high-quality players, you got to throw big money. Ponga's on about 1.2, 1.1. I mean, they didn't get Ponga there because Newcastle's a great city to be in. They got him there because money talks. Desperation. So I think it was on the back of desperation that they signed Dylan Brown. And if he doesn't perform the way they want him to perform, it's going to be a 10-year headache, at least, for the Newcastle Knights. And at least 8 years, considering that they're in this position.
I just think that this has set a precedent for all player managers. as soon as they saw that deal get signed, they were frothing.
Oh, yeah.
Because whoever they're managing, whoever they've got in their books, they are just going to go and fight so much harder to keep their player happy and get them the most money.
And they'll get a bigger cut.
100%.
So that's why they're going to do it. They don't really care. I don't think they care about the player. I think they care about more the fact they get more money in their pocket.
Nah, if we know anything about player managers, they don't care about the spirit of the game whatsoever.
Nah, they're dogs.
But apparently who does care about the spirit of the game are the NRL referees, because there was a spirit of the game penalty happening over the weekend.
Yeah, I saw that.
The Bulldogs were hit with an unusual penalty in their win over the Parramatta Eels on Sunday, with forward Josh Curran pinged for impersonating the referee in the spirit of the game call that has sparked debate. With 3 minutes left in the opening half, match official Wyatt Raymond blew the whistle to hand Parramatta another set for Curran calling a bloke offside. The Bulldogs forward cheeky tactic appeared to work, causing the Eels defence to fall away from tackling Bulldogs winger Blake Wilson. Explaining his decision, Raymond said that the incident was against the true spirit of the game. Now, Stato, we both played footy in our years. Is this against the spirit of the game, mate, or is this just part of it?
Bro, that is absolute garbage. I watched the game and I saw the penalty was blown and I'm like, oh, they're blowing it for offside. And
I
then
thought the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
And then I was watching, and then next thing you see is that they get called for spirit of the game. I think it's rubbish. I think that's just a personal opinion from a ref.
Yep.
I don't think it's against the spirit of the game at all. Because if you look at previous years, the amount of times where players have, like in about to score a try, for example, like I can give you one moment. It was Bulldogs against Gold Coast many years ago, back in the days where Josh Morris was playing for the Dogs, and this was a game we were winning convincingly. And Titans got the ball on their line. I think it was off a kick. I think we put up a kick, crossfield kick. It went to the middle of the field. Titans got the ball, and Ash Taylor had the ball. Josh Morris called for Taylor, called him some sort of name that they must have heard him called on the field, and Taylor threw the ball to him, and Josh Morris put the ball down and scored. That's funny.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's smart. It's not against the spirit of the game.
100%.
For me, it's a player's like, you're an idiot. You just threw the ball to the opposition, you scored a try. Now, what Josh Curran did is not against the spirit of the game. I think it's very funny. I think that the fact that it was gone down to a refereeing decision and they called it a penalty, I think is absolutely ridiculous. I think the rest have lost the plot.
I think as a fan of the game, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But as a player in the game, you got to think about it. They're doing everything they can to get the opposition offside. They're trying to do everything they can to get them out of focus.
Yeah.
And mate, he did the right thing. He called him offside and he stopped.
Yeah.
Which allowed the line break to occur.
Yeah.
So I think that, like you said, the ref had a personal opinion. He just didn't like being impersonated.
Yeah.
And he calls a random penalty. Look, it's happened throughout the years. Happened when we were playing the game. It happens in the first grade. It's happened constantly. I even saw Willie Mason talking about it this week, and he said, mate, if they called those type of penalties when we were playing the game, it wouldn't have stopped.
Yeah,
He said that was all we did as players, because if you could get them offside or if you could get them out of the play, you got to be switched on enough to know what the ref's voice sound like and what it doesn't.
And the thing is, for me, it's because if that's going to be against the spirit of the game, then trash talking is against the spirit of the game.
100%.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line? I think that to set it at that precedence, I think is a bit ridiculous. Look, I think it was the wrong call, obviously. I know Dogs, Para, I know that it's against Dogs, whatever, but I would have no problem if any other player did it at any other club in any other scenario. I got no issue.
Even on the 100% footy, DCE came out and he had a good laugh about it, and he said, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot this weekend, see what happens.
Yeah, because it's funny.
It's great.
Yeah, because it's a laugh. The fact that it went down to a penalty, it's comedic. I don't know. I just think it's silly. I think that the refs have taken it too far in that regard. I think that particular ref took it way too far in that regard. Play on. Honestly, play on. It's not that big a deal. It's the boys having a laugh. If you fall for it, you fall for it. It is what it is. Look, to call a penalty, come on, man. Like I think we're taking it way too far now. We're being way too nitpicky.
And again, I think that's where it ends. I don't think this thing is going to get out of control. I don't think it's going to turn into a bigger thing than it was. I think that ref is going to be pulled aside and he's going to be told, hey, calm it down a bit. It was nothing. Like, get over it.
Get over it. It's not a big
on.
deal.
It's play on. I don't think it affects the league whatsoever. I don't think it's going to be one of those things where all the referees are looking out for it now.
Yeah.
If anything, the boys are going to have a laugh about it and they're going to play on.
And that's how it is. And players throw other players' shoes when they're in the tackle. They take that and they launch it, and they launch it to the crowd. It's funny. I know they've been penalised once or twice, but it's funny, little things like that. Like, you can't get rid of things like that are as part of the game and then say it's against the spirit of the game. That's rubbish.
Because that takes it back to schoolboy footy. That takes it back to backyard footy.
Yeah.
That's what
at the end of the day, while it is the job, like, you want to have a bit of a laugh on the field to them. You know what I mean?
100%.
I think it's rubbish.
Listen, that's a load of rubbish, and another load of rubbish, mate, is Reggie the Rabbit, a mascot, punching a kid. Now, South Sydney's official mascot, Reggie the Rabbit, has apologised to a young fan after an altercation in the side's round 3 clash with Cronulla. Charlie Gallico has landed in hot water after the fixture at Shark Park, after it was alleged that he pushed a 9-year-old fan, Benji Agius, with video footage resurfacing on social media. He says that his actions were wrong and that I should have never pushed Benji, or any child for that matter, the way I did. I love children and I do a lot of work for charity in the community and in junior football. I realise Reggie Rabbit is a children's character and my actions were not right. It does not appear that at this stage that the club or Gallico will cop any form of punishment for the incident. But Stat, what happened here, man? Like, I've watched the footage myself. I don't understand why he pushed him in the first place.
So, according to Reggie, the rabbit, or in this case, Charlie, from what he was saying, is he went and approached the fan, I think it was to just say hello, whatever, and he believes that he was shoved first. Or something happened to him first. And that's why he got provoked and then he pushed the kid. Now, the problem I have with all this is I think that Charlie, the guy in the costume, the apology he dished out, not a genuine apology.
No chance.
Nah. I think what's happened here is because on Monday night, he came out in an interview and he said, I've done nothing wrong. I was attacked first and I retaliated. Maybe I shouldn't have retaliated, but that's what happens. Like, you're not meant to touch a mascot. I've done nothing wrong. I'm clean. I'm all good. So,
champ, he pushed a 9-year-old. The guy is 81 years old.
Yeah.
You have no standing on this.
Yeah.
The kid is 9.
So, and that's the thing. So, what I don't seem to understand is why he was so defiant on Monday. He's like, I did nothing wrong. I was provoked. He shouldn't have touched me first. This is what's happened. I've done nothing wrong. I'm in the clear. I'm a good guy. I work with children. I've done this for many years, since, however long. And then the next morning, he comes out with this statement. I apologize. I've seen the footage. I take action. Like, I take remorse for whatever. I think that apology is a load of crap.
Yep.
The reason I say that is because Rabbitohs would have told him, mate, if this goes any further, it's going to become a distraction for the club. It's going to become a distraction for yourself. Just drop it. Just say you accept responsibility, let it go, and continue being the mascot. Because if not, fans are going to come back at you.
They saved him his job.
Yeah, 100%. They 100% saved him his job. Because you talked about the passion in being a mascot. So for me, it's like, okay, well, don't come out one day saying that you're not genuine. Oh, I've done nothing wrong. He provoked me first. I did what I thought was the best thing to do in that moment, blah, 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 blah. And then the next morning, you get humbled. That statement definitely came from South Sydney. You can write anything and put Charlie said this, Charlie said that, whatever. It means nothing. I think the apology isn't genuine. I think he's still rattled and I think he's still annoyed. But at the end of the day, like you said, an 81-year-old bloke shoving a 9-year-old kid, if that was my kid that was shoved, I'd probably punch on with the mascot. I mean, that's just how it is.
100%. And I think, again, this brings up a bigger issue that's with our game right now. You are a representative of this game. You're a representative of this sport. You get the privilege to run onto the field and G up the crowd as a mascot. Whether you're a player, a mascot, a coach, a cheerleader, no matter what part of the game you have the privilege of being part of the greatest game of all. So you have a big responsibility to build up a child's day, build up their image of the game, and give them a love for this game.
Yep.
It should be a safe environment where no parent feels like their kid is going to get pushed, their kid is going to be in any harm's way. But he took that away from that kid and that family. Like, bro, I know if it's my dad, he would have said, that's it, we're not going to games anymore because I got shoved by a mascot. And this kid is going to get impacted for probably the next 5 to 10 years, mate. This is a problem with our game. People need to shape up. People need to sort things out. And remember that this is a sport that people take their families to watch so that they can have a great afternoon at the footy.
No, I get it. And I think that, and in this situation, you see how parents can also overreact.
100%.
I mean, the mum went to the police and said, oh, this is what happened, blah, blah. And the police said, we're not going to invest. We don't this is not a priority for us. We don't even care about this. Look, I know where you're coming from, and I see that. At the end of the day, I just think that if you're defiant on a stance, continue your defiance. If it's going to cost you your job, it costs you your job. The footage doesn't help the mascot.
No.
At all. If you've seen the footage, it's very clear that the mascot walks over, and then I think as the kid goes stick his hand out, not even touching him, he goes and shoves him. Like, you can't do that. You can't do that. And like you said, it takes families away from the footy when attendance is a bit of an issue at the moment at those bigger stadiums. So, look, I think the apology was from the Rabbitohs just to tell them to shut up. It is what it is. Just come out and say you're sorry. Put your pride aside so that you can keep your job so no one comes after you saying you should lose your job. I mean, the guy even got backing from the Prime Minister. And then, Albanese came out and was like, look, hey.
What do you mean by that? He got backing from the Prime Minister?
The Prime Minister was addressing a few things, and then a reporter asked Albanese, because he's a Rabbitohs fan, what his thoughts were on the incident. And he defended the Charlie. He's like, mate, Charlie's a great guy. He wouldn't harm a fly. Like, he full came out and backed him.
That is insane.
Yeah, he full backed him.
What is going on here?
Yeah, so he full backed him, and then Charlie came and was like, yeah, I'm so defiant. I've done nothing wrong. And then the next day, it's a statement. I apologize. I've seen the footage. I'm in the wrong. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I think Rabbitohs did it just to say, listen, shut up, keep your job. Don't let it be a big deal. We don't care about it. Let it go. Give the parents their sorry. Give the kid their sorry and be done. Because if you don't, this can drag. And it can get ugly. And no one in the club has time for that.
And I think this is where the NRL is being smart this year. Last year, everything turned into a big deal. No matter what it was, everything got blown up and out of proportion. But now we have this current situation with the refs, and we have this Rabbitohs mascot thing. They're fine. Slap on the wrist, move on. We don't need to make a big thing out of this, but pull him in line and let's move on. No one needs to lose their job over this.
Yeah.
Push the kid, apologize, get over it, and let's move on. Let's play the game.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's what's the most important thing is people come to the footy to watch the footy. They don't come to watch a mascot. They don't come to watch cheerleaders. They want to come watch the footy. I understand that's all part of the game, but in the greater scheme of it all, they're there for the footy. So, look, like I said, I think it was, again, a bit of a laugh. At least from a viewer's end, it's a laugh. But I understand that the Rabbitohs had to do what they needed to do to get this swept under the rug and dealt with, so it doesn't become a distraction for them. Because if you think of the Rabbitohs at the moment, their form isn't amazing, and they've got so many players out, that the last thing they need to worry about is a mascot pushing a fan. Now, like I said, if I was the father of the kid, I would swing at the mascot. That's just me. But look, it's been put to bed now. Mate, even get backing from the Prime Minister, that's pretty crazy, mate.
Mate, who would have thought that a Rabbitohs mascot would be getting backing from our Prime Minister?
I know. Unbelievable.
Something that is getting backing by our Prime Minister, which is actually a pretty big deal. Big news came out this week, Stat, that the Rugby League Ashes are returning.
Yes.
With the Kangaroos taking a tour to England after a 22-year hiatus.
Yep.
The Rugby League Ashes will return later this year in a 3-test series between Australia and England for the first time since 2003. The matches will be played across England in October and November as the Kangaroos head on their first tour since the 2022 World Cup. Now, Stat, to be straight out, mate, I don't know too much about the Ashes. I don't know too much about the history of it. Can you explain to the audience and to me what this is and what's going on?
Yeah, so in the off-season, every year, back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, every few years they would go on a tour. They would go to England, they'd go to France, and they would do an Ashes series. It would be the best between Australia against England. There would always be like there was also a Tri-Nation series. I remember growing up, we used to watch a lot of Tri-Nation series between Australia, New Zealand, and England. So they're bringing that form back just with the Ashes this year. I think it's a great concept. I think this is a concept that I wish never got lost on Rugby League. Rugby League need to find a way to bring in more international games. I think this is a really good start. Having the Ashes, going to England, because you hear so many past players talk about it. One, again, being someone we've already mentioned on here, Willie Mason. He talks so often about the amazing memories that were created over that period of time, in the Ashes, like going to England, going to France, touring the world with your best mates, representing Australia. Like, it's one of the greatest honours that you can have in the game. So I think that they're bringing it back to bring in more international games into the calendar. I'm really excited for it. I mean, it's more rugby league. I don't know how you felt last preseason. There was no rugby league. It was boring as.
Brutal, brother.
Yeah, it's brutal. So to have internationals now, I think is great. I also think it provides the viewer the money's worth of being able to view the games. And even for the player. I mean, the players, they complain about their heavy schedule, about 27 rounds and final series, plus Origin, plus, they want to have a bit of a break. And I understand that to a degree, but you can't just brush off the international calendar. You can't brush off State of Origin. The international game needs to be a standalone game. Too many times it's come into the season and it hasn't really done well. So the only time they can really do it is in preseason. You know what I mean? And it gives those players an extended break. They'll have the same amount of time of a bit of a break, depending on their club and everything else. They'll go on their annual leave. They'll take their year off. They'll take whatever remaining time. But to get to travel the world with your best mates, to go play 3 games of footy, I mean, you get such a small window to play rugby league, and you get paid very, very, very good money to do it. Just go do it.
I don't understand the complaint. I really don't when it comes from players saying, we want our off-season and all that. Mate, it should be a privilege to represent your country.
Yeah.
It should be a privilege to represent the game and to play the sport overseas. That's awesome. Now, Stan, my only concern with this is, does England have the talent to give us a competitive game? Because I think the big problem we've had with the international game at the moment is there's too many scoreless games, or there's too many big discrepancies in scorelines. Do you think England will give us a run for our money?
Yeah, I think they will. England have a very good side. England have always had a decent side. I remember in the years growing up, watching them when I was a kid, waking up 3 or 4 in the morning to watch the Tri Nations. England were always a formidable force. Now, they've got talent across the park. They've got so many great representatives in England that can play for England that will actually do really well. We've got some of the Brits actually play in the NRL that will go and represent England. You've got Victor Radley that'll go represent England. They've got great halves. Now they've got great backs. They'll all actually compete with Australia and they'll go really well. For it to be a blowout, it would have to be like Australia are just on their game. But with the men's game, in terms of like the top tier countries like Australia, England, New Zealand, Tonga, even to a degree Samoa, blowouts are less likely to happen for the men. England will give us a run for their money. They're at home, they're in their conditions. And like I said, I don't think they'll top Australia, but they'll give them a run for their money. They'll make it competitive. They'll make it a very interesting interesting series for the Ashes. And I think they'll do really well.
Do you think this is a smarter play than the Las Vegas thing? Because thinking about it, this is the play to play with. You go to a country that actually knows the sport. You go to a country that actually plays the sport. And this might build up a rivalry again, just like the cricket Ashes, where it brings more people back to watching the sport.
It's a different concept.
Okay.
The international game is a different concept to bringing regular rugby league games to Las Vegas. Because if you're bringing international games into it, in the international world, it's the best of the best. It's the best 17 that represent Australia. It's the best 17 that represent England.
Yeah, but my issue with that is that they tried to do that at Vegas this year with the girls' game. They had an international game there and it was a blowout.
Well, you've said it yourself. The girls' game. The girls' game does not even and should not even be compared to the men. The Vegas thing is a whole separate issue. See, if we're going to talk about Vegas really quickly, I would like to think that with the Vegas stuff and the women's game, I mean, they should have had 4 games at Vegas. And the one international that they had, which was for the women, absolute blowout, waste of time. It brought the whole morale down for the women's game and for the whole crowd that were at Vegas. About 15,000 people left the stadium when the girls played their game. So if you're trying to bring the international game to Vegas, it'll have to be a separate standalone weekend, separate to NRL rounds, because the 4 clubs that are going, there's going to be representatives from those 4 clubs playing international. So I think it's different. Going back to England, it'll revive the game in England a little bit more, because there's talk that NRL want to buy the Super League and are interested in trying to obtain rights to the Super League and trying to make it a very competitive game over there. There are clubs in financial ruin, Bradford Bulls, Salford Red Devils over in the Super League. I mean, it'll bring back the footy a bit more over in England, and it'll get more eyes that are for people that are in England, will get more eyes of their people into the game. To compare it to Vegas is a whole different concept, because you're comparing the men's game and the women's game. But look, I think to do it at the end of the season is a very interesting move. I like it. I wouldn't be opposed to Vegas seeing an international game. I think if they want to take an international game to Vegas, I think that'd be very interesting. I'd like to see the concept around that. That'll bring the women's game into it and the men's game. You put 2 games in there, or even 3 games, and max it out. But to compare it to Vegas, I think it's two different sports, like 2 different types of games.
Yeah, fair play, mate. Look, it's a good thing. Looking forward to it. Always love some more footy.
Yeah.
Now, listen, we were meant to wrap it up. I got one more news story for you. I know you're not prepared for it, but I know there's going to be a bunch of our fans that would be absolutely spewing if we didn't bring up the fact that rugby league fans have some great news. Looking forward to a new rugby league game coming to PlayStation and Xbox. Rugby league fans are rejoicing after NRL Chief Executive Andrew Abdo revealed that league is planning to release a video game later this year.
Yep.
The Rugby League Live game was first released back in 2003, Stato.
Yes, sir.
2003 was when you and I were playing PS2, sitting down in the garage playing some Rugby League, and it quickly became a fan favorite with the last game coming out in 2017. He spoke on the Hello Sport podcast and teased the release of a new game that he promised would be a modern and up to standard for gamers of 2025. It will be a multi-platform game with much more online and contemporary value. It's going to be released in 2025. Stato, what do you think of us getting another rugby league game? Not just on PlayStation, not just on Xbox, but he's saying this is going to be multi-platform. It's going to be on PC. It's going to be on mobile phones. What do you think of this, man?
Huge. And it's about time.
Yeah.
And I remember when the first rugby league game came out, like you said, 2003. I remember like that came out, Rugby League Live 2 came out, we're playing on our computers, on our PlayStations, and it was just a great time.
Which one was your favorite, bro?
The first one.
Really?
Loved the first one. The original, stock standard.
I loved number 2, bro.
Yeah, number 2 was great as well. And then 3 and 4 kind of dipped. I don't really play them much.
No, not really.
Loved 1 and 2, but look, I think it's about time because you see a lot of people now, there's a lot of people online, like on TikTok and all that, they are playing Rugby League Live again. And what they're doing is they're having to go in like via a different portal and get the updated squads into what it stands for this year. And I like the concept of that, but I think it's time for a new game. We need, like, I remember when the rugby games came out back in the day, you could play at the beach, you could play in the snow, you could play on the sand. You could, like, all these different types of modern games, which was pretty cool.
I think my favorite part of the old game was the glitch that it had, where if you ran across the line and you jumped down the sideline, no defender could stop you.
Yeah, that's right.
And you'd score every time.
Yeah,
that was my favorite glitch.
You'd have to pick Willie Tonga and you'd win every time.
100%. Awesome.
Now, look, I think it's time. I think it's time that NRL get back into that. They can make so much more money out of this if they do it properly and they do it well. I just want to see the levels. Like, I think I want it to get to a point where it's like WWE 2K, where your individual player, like, instead of just playing, your standard tournaments and everything, you climb through the ranks. Like, I want to see where, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think, like, where, you start off at Jersey Flag, you get SG Ball Jersey Flag, 20s, you got a cup, and you play within cup, and then you get picked for your debut. Like, I'd love to see that in the next coming few games, like, bring that out. But I think, look, it's a great thing for fans. It's big for the rugby league community to get a new game. I'd be on it. I think I'd be the first one buying it on my console. I love it. I think it's great. To be up to date and modernized, I think would be cool. Yeah, bring it on. I love it. How can people not like this news?
Yeah, it's great news. And unfortunately, news did come out. It is not going to be 2K that takes this over.
Of course not.
It is going back to Blue Ant.
Okay.
I just hope that Blue Ant does a great job with it. They learn from previous mistakes. They bring in the updated squads. But with Abdo at the helm, bro, I really feel like that even if this game's not the greatest, the next one's going to be even better. And this is just another great way to get more eyes on the product.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's another avenue like NRL can make money. What Vlanders and Abdo are doing for the NRL is amazing. Like, we take for granted that, Vlanders came in at 2020 and absolutely brought the game back during the years of COVID, right? In that year of COVID. They're doing great things for our game. NRL have made so much money. We are the number one sport in Australia. And every year, I think it's almost every year that AFL gets a new game. It's our game for 20 years. I think Blue Ant will do a good job, though. I think what they had back then, they worked with back then, and I think they did really well. But it's time. It's time for an upgrade. I'm sure they'll get around to it and make sure everything is up top notch and up to date. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see it and bring it on. I can't wait.
It's great, mate. It is definitely time for a new game, and that is our time tonight.
It is our time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed another episode of League Chat with the Stat. Remember, subscribe to Have a Chat Productions, where you'll find all your rugby league content. Leave a comment, like the video. If you disagree with any of our opinions or you want to elaborate on what we've said, let us know in the comments. And if there's anything you want us to talk about, let us know. We're on Instagram on the League Chat with the Stat. And we are also on YouTube, as we know. So you can let us know. Drop in what you'd like to see more of. And yeah, keep enjoying your footy. Enjoy the podcast. And we'll speak to you guys soon. See you later.